So I wrote the other day about the Jacksonville Jaguars and their struggles over the past couple of decades, really, when it comes to seasons coming off a playoff berth. So I just want to go over the history here of the Jaguars' playoff woes when it comes to the season after making the playoffs. And then I want to talk a little bit about why, hopefully, this time around should actually be different for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So let's go clear back to 2005. The Jaguars were this upstart young team under a defensive coach, Jack Del Rio. The team looked like an up-and-coming squad that could contend possibly year after year under Del Rio. Now, they finished just slipping into the playoffs as a wild card team because the Colts reigned supreme under Peyton Manning in the AFC South. That's no different in 2005. So the Jaguars came into the playoffs and promptly got defeated by, of course, the New England Patriots because everyone in the AFC got beat by either the Patriots or the Colts in those days. But the Jaguars were dismissed from the 2005 season's playoffs and went home. 2006 rolls around and they fall flat. Byron Leftwich didn't develop, the offense didn't develop, the team struggled, and they just fell just a little short of the playoffs, and then it was time to reload. 2007 rolls around, and this was an interesting season because going into the 2007 season, it wasn't clear who the quarterback would be, but David Garrard takes over. The Jaguars go to the playoffs, have a very strong regular season. Once again, though, a wild card team because once again, the Colts are that team that just the AFC South was ruled by them. So the Jaguars go into Pittsburgh, actually beat the Steelers in a thrilling playoff game before going and losing to the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots, of course, would go on to the Super Bowl before losing their one and only loss of the season to the New York Giants. Okay, so those are the Del Rio era playoff berths, and they were exciting. The Jaguars actually looked like a good team for a minute there, but then in 2008, following that second one, the team, the wheels fell off the wagon. Like, it actually reminded me a lot of 2017, which I'll get to in just a minute, but the team was a defensive juggernaut, had an offense that could score, but not by any means a great offense, and they just fell flat. Like, the defense fell apart in 2008. The team just was not a good team. Expectations were way high. They delivered way low. And then they went into the wilderness for like 10 years, where you went through several quarterbacks. David Garrard, while he had some decent years, never panned out as a true starting franchise caliber quarterback for the Jaguars. The offense could never really get it going. The defense was always okay. 2010, they almost won the division, but then they roll on to 2017. And this is after they'd gone through Garrard, they'd gone through Blaine Gabbert, and then they landed eventually on Blake Bortles. And Blake Bortles was sort of up and down in his early years. He had that one season where he was near the top in the NFL in touchdowns thrown, but the team wasn't very good. But in 2017, everything came together. The offense was okay. It was actually probably solid. I would call it solid. It could score some points. And the defense was all world beater. Like, Saxonville was an awesome defense in 2017. From the very get-go, from week one against, I believe it was the Texans, the defense looked outstanding under Doug Marrone that year. They made an improbable run clear to the AFC Championship game and got beat by the New England Patriots again. So 2018 rolls around. The team should be good still. In fact, the team started out really well, and if you recall, they actually beat the New England Patriots early in that season in what looked like a fairly dominating performance there. They handed the Patriots a sound defeat. So everything was looking up. And then once again, the wheels fell off the proverbial wagon. The team fell apart. They couldn't stop other teams. They couldn't score points. The Blake Bortles era ended spectacularly, and the Jaguars were back into the wilderness. And they went looking. Nick Foles didn't pan out, which I thought they actually had some opportunity with Nick Foles, but he got injured so quickly in the season that he was there. Gardner Minshew was, although fun, never more than a stopgap solution, and that landed us with Trevor Lawrence as the Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback. First year, obviously, under Urban Meyer was terrible, but then year two, Doug Peterson. This is where the Jaguars finally got the formula at least mostly right. An NFL team needs a few things to be right to actually compete year in and year out. They need a good GM. They need a good head coach, and they need a good quarterback. Now, in 2005, the Jaguars had, in my mind, a good head coach. They had a decent roster. The quarterback wasn't quite right. Byron Leftwich was a game manager. He, to be fair to him, never had elite weapons, so the offense struggled. 2007, Garrard, game manager, never had elite weapons. And when he made the right decisions, the team did pretty well. But when he struggled in games, the team also struggled mightily. They couldn't get it done. Also, under Wayne Weaver, the previous owner of the Jaguars, they were sort of known as a team that didn't like to spend money. So, GM, head coach, and the quarterback all have to be right. Blake Bortles, with the right GM and right head coach, maybe could have done something. Maybe could have created a sustainable long-term roster. In fact, I don't think Doug Marrone is a bad head coach in the NFL. But this time, undoubtedly, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Trent Baalke, I would call him an adequate GM. Until recently, he was probably looked at as a terrible GM, but currently looked at for the Jaguars as a decent one. They've built a good roster. Doug Peterson, nobody, and I mean nobody, thinks that Doug Peterson is the wrong head coach in Jacksonville, especially after year one. And then, of course, Trevor Lawrence made a huge leap in year two, clearly a franchise quarterback. I don't think anyone at this point is arguing that he is a bust. In fact, the last person to argue that he was a bust, that was about mid-season of the 2022 season, and then Trevor Lawrence promptly went off and looked like an MVP candidate throughout the second half of the season. So the Jaguars have all three of those major components correct now, and they're in a bad division. So, Jacksonville Jaguars, unlike their historical predecessors from the 2000s eras, that 2005 team, the 2007 team, the 2017 team, all those teams made the playoffs, and they look like they might be contenders for a long time. They fell flat in the year after. This time, the Jaguars actually look like not only are they a contender today, they should be a contender tomorrow, and they should be a contender, frankly, 5 years from now, provided that they keep those key pieces in place, which is not easy to do, but they have the right people now for the first time in probably decades to actually be a contending team year after year after year.